Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
When them people come here and they ask you who done this, you tell them Mickey Mallory Knox did it, all right? Say it.
Mickey Mallory Knox did it.
Hello and welcome to this week's very wet and rainy and windy Monday movie show. I'm your host Stuart and I'm also joined by Andy.
Hello and welcome to not only our wet and windy but also rather packed show.
Yeah, we have 4 films to review this week. They are
Oliver Stone's new latest film Savages. Brad Pitt is killing them softly. Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
I always get that mixed up.
Gyllenhaal
is in Hysteria, and we have The Tower Block as well.
Yeah, keeping an ear out with Hysteria. I'm going to have a right lot of fun trying to describe that film. On top of that, we have some news of Box Office Top 10, but as always, you can get us on the live chat on Spreaker. Just to mention one thing, Following the Nerd, a site that Andy seems to write for, and I do a few bits and bobs for them as well. I'm also on their show on a Thursday night doing their Box Office Top 10, are involved in a charity auction for a children's charity in... I should have actually read all of this up. It takes place in the Balmoral Hotel at Blacks Road in Belfast on Thursday. Admission is £10. There's a charity auction and they're giving away quite a few... some really, really fantastic things like signed photographs from Matt Smith and also £300 gift vouchers and 2-night B&B in a hotel in Dublin for a weekend. So check out their site, that's followingthenerd.com. The information for the event is actually on the top part of the site itself, and if you're in Belfast,
I think they were talking about, was there not something about a signed Star Wars art book or something as well, like production art or something too?
Yes,
so quite a lot of sort of film related things in there that might be of interest to people.
Definitely, if you're in Belfast on Thursday, definitely go along to that and help these guys out. But let's get things running with the Box Office Top 10. Number 10, Ted.
Yeah, still hanging in there. I'm surprised. I honestly didn't think it was going to still be in the top 10. The Mark Wahlberg, Seth MacFarlane comedy. I have to think there. It's done really well for itself. It's just under 30 million mark in the UK, which is amazing for a 15 rated film. And if you haven't seen it, check it out while it's still in the cinema, because it's possibly, I think, the funniest film we've seen this year.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go on to the next one, just want to mention that Premium Rush failed to get in the top 15. Which is surprising.
It went to number 16, which is ridiculous. It got dumped completely by the cinemas and everyone. It had less screenings than Ted did, and Ted's been out for 7 weeks. How ridiculous is that?
It's insane. At number 9, The Possession.
I haven't seen this one yet, but it's the latest horror thing, which is based on an eBay article.
Yeah, and like Andy said, it is supposedly based on a true story. Following Nerd, again, back to them, they've actually interviewed the director of it. So if you want to read that interview, go onto their website. It's your bog standard average possession film. It's slightly better than some of them that has been released over the past few years because of the fact that it knows its boundaries, but it never crosses the lines of that boundaries. It does start to go insane in the last 20 minutes just to probably get people more interested in the film, but it's very average. Number 8, Total Recall.
The remake that nobody really wanted of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Paul Verhoeven film, this time directed by Len Wiseman, and starring Colin Farrell in the film in Arnold Schwarzenegger's role. It's not a bad film. It just doesn't live up to the original, and it's the story changes that have been made there. Some of them work, most of them don't. The best thing about it is Kate Beckinsale, who plays essentially what is 2 characters from the original film melded together. It's enjoyable, it's fine, it's passable fun, but if you're going to see it, and you haven't seen the original, see this one and then see the original, and you'll see how much better it is.
Yeah, I think it probably would have done much more better if it wasn't called Total Recall. if it was a different film, if it was like a separate, it wasn't like a sort of like a remake of Total Recall. If it was something else, it might have done much more better. It might have had a better standing.
Yeah, it does require a big suspension of disbelief for a big thing that's going on here, but I won't go into that now.
Yeah, number 7, Brave.
Pixar's, well, I don't want to say weakest because it's not their weakest film, but it is far from their best and far from their average decent. The story of a Scottish princess who wants to live a sort of a normal life and not be married off. It's getting a lot of good feedback from female audiences. Mothers and daughters seem to be enjoying it a lot more. I didn't think it was a bad film, but it's just disappointingly average.
Yeah, number 6, a new entry for Hope Springs.
This is a drama which we haven't seen, which stars Tommy Lee Jones and Meryl Streep as an old married couple whose sex life is pretty much non-existent anymore. And Meryl Streep's character wants to try and rekindle that, and so they go and see a therapist played by Steve Carell. It seems to be getting sort of decent all right reviews, but more so for a mature audience than a younger audience.
Yeah, number 5, Dread. I'm not going to add 3D, just Dread. It's known as Dread. It's known as Dread in America, so.
Well, they probably have more 2D screenings of it than we do here. It's a really good adaptation, faithful to the comic. One of the best comic book adaptations, I would say. And a hell of a lot better than the Sylvester Stallone one, which was on Channel 5 last night, believe it or not, and is remarkably still just as awful as ever. It's awful, that film. But the new one is brilliant. The 3D is nicely used, although it's a bit underused. The slow-mo effect is one of the first times that slow motion has been used to great effect, and it's really worth checking out. It's rated 18 because it's violent and it's gory and it's graphic, but it suits the tone of the comic.
And it only went in at number 6 in America, taking only $6.3 million on its first weekend, which is a bit tragic. I was expecting a little bit more from it.
That is disappointing, but 6.3 million, that's already taken back just under a quarter of what it cost to make. So yeah, I don't think, given that and how it's done everywhere else, I don't think it will be considered a loss. I hope that it will get a sequel made because they're planned to do 3 of them. Yeah,
it's Resident Evil syndrome. Resident Evil films do much better across the world, across the globe, rather than in America. That was like the last Resident Evil film took 4 times as much across the rest of the world than it did in America, and I think it's going to be the same with Dread. Number 4, Lawless.
A disappointing film for me. Stars Tom Hardy as one of 3 brothers, the other one played by Shia LaBeouf. And Shia LaBeouf isn't bad in the film. He actually gives a really decent performance. It's just that it's a film that looks really good. It's about bootleggers during the 1930s in America. And with Guy Pearce, who turns up as a corrupt cop who wants a piece of the action, essentially. It's a decent film, but the female characters, Jessica Chastain in it, who's a brilliant actress, but she's given nothing really to do in this film, as is Mia Wasikowska, who is also in the film. It's worth seeing because it looks amazing. It looks brilliantly shot, but it really did try my patience as a film.
Yeah, when I was trying to explain this film on Following the Nerd on Thursday, I completely forgot Jessica Chastain's name, but I remembered Mia Wasikowska. I remembered the harder name, but not the easier name, because I was trying to explain something that she's in a horror film called Mama coming out early next year, and I couldn't remember her name.
How could you forget the name of the busiest actress in Hollywood at the moment?
I don't know. It's the same kind of problem that you seem to have, that you can easily name like Japanese actors or whatever, but you have a problem with like European names or something.
Yeah, don't get me onto Swedish ones. I'm not going there this week.
Yeah, number 3, Anna Karenina.
Oh, I'm glad you said that and not me. I haven't seen this. We haven't seen this, but it's based on the Tolstoy story. Did I mispronounce that as well?
Yeah, it's Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy.
I just can't pronounce European names at all. It's the drama of a sort of a aristocrat who enters into a love affair with. You've got Keira Knightley in there. You've got Jude Law, which is partly the 2 of them in the same film. Kind of put me off, but from what I hear, they're both getting nods. Jude Law especially for really good performances.
Yeah, and from now on I'm going to say Karen Aranina, because that's how Mark said it on Thursday, and I thought it was funny. Karen Aranina. Number 2, and you went for Paranorman.
Possibly the best animated film of this year for me. A great sort of throwback to kids' horror movies. And it is a true kids' horror movies. There are parts in it that kids will find quite frightening and terrifying. It's only rated PG, but anyone under the age of, I'd say, maybe 8 will find parts of this downright terrifying. There's loads of references back for adults into horror movies and zombies, and there's a great gag about zombies walking really slowly. It's funny, there's loads of gags in it, and the animation is top notch for a stop motion animation. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I really do want to see this film. I hope it's this film or From Up on Poppy Hill, which might be my animated film of the year, and I really do want to see this so badly.
Let me guess, that's a Studio Ghibli one, right?
Yeah, From Up on Poppy Hill, yep.
Yeah.
How'd you guess? Surprise. And at number 1, and you went for The Sweeney.
Yeah, it's taken a little bit of a beating, review-wise, but I can see where some of them are sort of going with it. But for me, it was a decent British action film. It had decent action sequences, a great performance from Ray Winston, and a decent supporting performance from Plan B, which is the most surprising thing in it, because I really didn't expect much from him. It's a decent film, but it's not really The Sweeney, because it is just the characters, the names they've taken, and that's it. They haven't taken any other kind of references to it, and it's essentially a modern update of it, but it's still using the old tactics, which unfortunately makes it feel a bit dated.
Right, let's get on to some movie news.
James Gunn, director of spoof superhero movie Super, has officially been announced as the director of Marvel's new comic-to-screen adaptation, Guardians of the Galaxy. Gunn has also confirmed that he'll be working on the script for the movie, which is aimed to be released in August 2014. In other news related to this, it's been confirmed that the Marvel villain Thanos, seen in the Small Avengers post-credit sequence, will appear in Guardians of the Galaxy as the main villain, as well as appearing in Avengers 2.
I'm really happy with this because Gunn is an absolutely insane director. Every single film that he's done is completely off the wall. Joss Whedon has given his best wishes to Gunn because he has said that Gunn is the perfect person for this. It might make a comic book film feel completely different to what we've seen before, and I think Gunn is probably the best to do this. He's a really interesting director.
Yeah, any film that's going to have a walking, talking CGI raccoon is definitely going to be something to look out for. And whether or not they pull it off, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out.
Yeah, you need a director as insane as Gunn to be able to handle something like that. Because if you look back at things that he has worked on at Slither, and he also was at Trauma originally, James Gunn, then you can see his insanity.
Yeah, he's definitely got an experience as well working with CGI effect as well, which is unfortunately is going to need them, but at least they've got someone who will know what they're doing.
And he's a big comic book fan as well. He's an insane comic book fan.
My only other piece of news from here is in a bizarre case of real life imitating movies, an Italian man's reportedly blamed his crimes on the Steven Spielberg movie Catch Me If You Can. The man named Andrea Serlo said that he's motivated to pose as a pilot by the movie and reportedly tricked his way onto at least one plane in the cockpit where he reportedly flew as third pilot. He was arrested in Turin Airport dressed in a homemade pilot's uniform by police after they'd been hunting him for several months after a civil aviation lieutenant raised an investigation when he realised that the man was too young to be a captain.
How stupid does the airline have to be in the first place to let him on?
I'm not gonna name the airline because in case of obviously there's possible issues there, but it's reported that he's done it at least once, possibly that he may have even done it more than once. So be afraid if you've been flying in the last few months or so, in case you were on one of the flights. Who knows?
Yeah, now that you're going to be put off from flying any Italian Airways, you're probably going to be put off from flying either Italy.
From what I know, looking at it, from what I remember, it's not an Italian airline. So I don't know what. But the deal
still,
is
though, there would have been an Italian crew, sort of like in the Italian airport where the incident originally happened. So
I don't know.
You guess
maybe you'll get to see it. What's happened? The true story of it, like an imposter style film in a few years or something.
Yeah, and Tom Hanks will probably star in it. Ironic. Right, my news stories. A crew member on the set of The Lone Ranger has died. According to TMZ, the crew member was a male diver working in a water tank. He was pulled from the tank and was discovered not breathing. Emergency services were called, but were unable to revive him. A spokesperson for Disney said, "We regretfully confirm that a Lone Ranger crew member has passed away after being taken to hospital. Our full support is behind the investigation into the circumstances of this terrible event."
Well, it's a tragic event, whatever the circumstances of it all. But I mean, that's now, was it the third movie set death there's been in the last year?
Yeah.
With I can't remember the other one, but there's Expendables 2, and another film that had an on-set death. So I don't know if it's maybe people are just becoming more negligent and just letting things go too much, or if it is sets are becoming more dangerous.
Yeah, because it's not just people dying on sets. There's been lots of reports of loads of accidents. Wolverine, there was one on the new Die Hard one as well, on the set of Die Hard, where there was a helicopter accident on that, and so it just seems to be lots of negligence in a way, that they're not taking care of the crew members or the cast members fully.
It's probably down to budget cuts and tight pockets and stuff, which is meaning people are cutting corners, unfortunately,
and trying to push a film too far in some places. Next news story: rumours are circulating that director Rupert Wyatt is set to leave the sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The film, titled Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, is set to come out on the 23rd of March 2014, and this is the reason why he wants to leave. It's down to it having a really tight release date.
Yeah, I've heard about this. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, 20th March 2014. March 2014. Okay, that is more than a year away. And it's been how long since the last Planet of the Apes film? When did that come out?
Released last year.
August last year, something like that. September. So that's been a year and almost 2 years.
Yeah, around about 2 years. It just depends on what Wyatt's up to as well.
It's not next year. I mean, the thing is, if he's not got anything else set up and everything, then fair enough. But if he's doing other things, but from what I understand, he was planning to go into the next one straight away after the last one was finished. So why is it taking so long for them to get this to this point now? I don't think that's the reason. I honestly don't think that's the reason. I think there's something else going on.
Well, I'm just looking at IMDb.
Because there's plenty of films. There's plenty of other films that have been put together in much less time than that, and he's had that much time to have a jump on it. And he was talking about doing a sequel at the time, and he set up things in that film for sequels. I don't reasonably. It's the same thing as like G.I. Joe 2 getting pushed back to add 3D effects when it was actually to be adding extra scenes and reshoots and stuff. I think there's something else more unknown going on here.
Well, I'm just looking at his IMDb page, and he hasn't got another film out this year at all, or next year. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is not down on his IMDb page, so I don't know what's going on neither. Next news story: Vulture reporting that the co-creator of Reno 9/11 is set to direct the Baywatch film from a script penned by Peter Tolan that's set to have a more comic feel to it. David Hasselhoff has also said he is set to be in it as himself.
Oh my god. Is it not Reno 911, considering that it's about the police department?
Yes. Yeah.
But no, David Hasselhoff, no. Unless he's going to get shot in the film, killed in the film. Yes, I wouldn't mind.
He needs to die in the new Sean Bean.
Yeah, he needs to start having the on-screen death cameos. Petitions, please, start writing them up.
Yeah, and final piece of news story. Again, it's not as good. It's a horrible news story. Michael Bay has released a few details of Transformers 4.
No, skip. Just forget it. Go on.
First off, he has said that it will kick off where the third film has ended. He said to the Huffington Post, "We're basically taken from the history of where it was, or where we left it in Chicago, and we're going to carry it on from there." Beer also revealed why he decided to direct the fourth film after he said the third one will be his last. The reason is down to Beer believing that someone would screw up the franchise. Finally, Beer has confirmed that he's changing a lot of things but want to keep the history in the same place.
The only way someone could screw it up more than he has done with the last 2 films, I like the first one, I've written that, and I have all 3 of them, but the only way that someone could screw it up worse than that is if they hired Uwe Boll to direct it.
Uwe Boll, oh God. Or Uwe Lamel, because he's another director who has a nightmare with films. None of his films, I think, have ever gotten a rating higher than 10%, Uwe Lamel. So that's bad. And Booger on the live chat has just said, hooray, I love Transformer films.
Kick.
I will be having serious words with him a little bit later on. Right, we are going to a break, and after the break we'll have our first review.
Right, advert. What do I need to say in an advert? Well, I need to say that we're the Gamescast. I need to say that we're on Twitter at the Gamescast. I need to say we're on Facebook. I need to say we've got a website, thegamescast.com, and I need to say we're on YouTube. Oh yeah, and we're on this thing called Spreaker.com. Don't know where that came from. What else? That's probably it. Right, better record it. Oh, crap. That was 30 seconds. The Gamescast. Grown-up gamers talking about games. Allegedly.
Yeah, and speaking about the Gamescast, they are going to be at the Eurogame Expo this week, and Andy the Lucky Git is also going to be there.
Yoo-hoo.
I hate him. I hate you for that. Alright, on to the first review, where it's for Savages. It's directed by Oliver Stone. It came out in America about 2 months ago, month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Something like that, yeah.
It's a while ago, and so it's taken a while for it to come over here. It stars at the start of the film. Anyway, you're introduced to a character called O, or Ophelia, played by Blake Lively, and she says right at the start of the film, just because she's speaking to you now doesn't mean that she's going to be alive at the end of the movie. You find out also at the start of the film she's in a relationship with 2 people. Taylor Kitsch's character, who plays Chon, who's this. He's a soldier who's come back from Iraq, and he's sort of like the more tougher, violent guy. And also Aaron Taylor Johnson now, as he likes to be called. He plays Ben, who's sort of more like the mellow, sort of melodic guy who's got more of his head screwed into place. He goes in countries like Africa to support their villages and things like that. And now John and Ben have made a name for themselves by... They supply drugs on the island where they're at. However, they've taken all of the violence out of drugs. Everything seems to have been going perfectly fine. They're able to get in a lot of money, and both of them are in the same. They're in a relationship with O, and for the first 25-30 minutes of the film, it plods along with them and their daily lives with O, and how they're bringing all of this money and how the drugs are involved, etc. This big cartel, who's run by Selma Hayek's character, who plays Elena, wants in on what John and Ben are doing. So she sends a representative of hers to have a conversation with them to strike up a deal where they want to become partners. John and Ben decide to take 48 hours to decide whether they want to join up with them. However, 24 hours down the line, things start to get a bit too out of control, and O is kidnapped and held for ransom, and Ben and Sean are given the ultimatum that they've got to join up with this cartel or she will die. Here's a clip.
Which one of you?
Business or nothing personal.
Look, we can negotiate.
We didn't make you an offer to hear a counter offer.
We made you a deal to which we expected compliance. You lied to us.
We'll do whatever you want.
If that reflects a change in attitude, you'll have to prove it.
That's not a problem.
Really? Because it was a problem before.
It's not now.
Good. Now let me speak to Mr. E. Caviar.
I'm here.
You insulted me.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Take out your gun.
Now stick it in that vulgar mouth of yours.
Also involved in this is DEA cop, played by John Travolta, who's your typical cop who's sort of like, he takes bribes and money and stuff like that. He's a dirty cop, as known. And so the film itself, like I said, is about Ben and Chun trying to get O back and trying to stop what's actually happening. And personally, for me, this film is agonizingly slow. It's on for over 2 hours. And for the first 35-40 minutes of the film, it is about Ben, Chun, and O's life, about how exuberant their life is because of the amount of money that they're bringing in with the drugs, and also they have somebody working with them, played by Emil Hirsch, who's sort of like, he's a computer whiz in a way. He handles their money as well, and it's just, for the first 35-40 minutes, it's just that you're looking at their lives. After that, then it turns into the fact that it's all about them trying to get O back after she's been kidnapped by Selma Hayek's character, and also Benicio del Toro in this film, who's sort of like the underhand of Selma Hayek's character, and he plays his role to the sort of like the highest of menace. He's got like insanity running throughout his character through the entirety of this movie. Selma Hayek's supposed to be the same, but I think that her character's a bit diluted, and she has a more human element to her than what you expect for these kind of characters, considering that she respects her daughter, but her daughter does not respect her, and she wants her best for her daughter. Her daughter's in America, and she's obviously somewhere else. And the film itself, like I said, it's just agonizingly slow, and when things start to ramp up and go about with Ben and Chun trying to rescue Olivia, you just don't care anymore, and I didn't care whatsoever. It's a majorly borderline 15 film. It pushes the boundaries of a 15. Mm-hmm. It should have been. It's very close, very, very close to an 18, considering the amount of drugs that's in the film and nudity as well. There's a few sex scenes in the film, and the violence is a bit harsh. There is one scene which is quite hard to watch, which I'm not going to explain what it is. But personally, myself, I just thought this was a very boring film that had elements that could have been made it much more better. There's a film in here somewhere that's dying to get out, but it's been stopped back from all the negativity of the movie.
I just want to say, I mean, I agree with the opening issue, that the opening takes a while to get going because it's establishing the characters a bit more than it really needs to. The whole thing as well, I mean, it starts off with Blake Lively's character doing a voiceover and explaining things, which there's no need to have a character explain things and then show you what they're talking about for the first 25-30 minutes. Either have one or the other. Exactly. But I will say that I feel differently for the last sort of, well, the middle part of the film. I thought the middle hour of the film was where it started getting really good. There were great performances in there. There were decent performances even from Taylor Kish. There was a surprising performance from Aaron Taylor-Johnson, because I at first I didn't even recognise him. I was like, is that who it is? And for the first sort of 10 minutes I was trying to figure out who he was, and then I realised who it was from Kick-Ass. And I thought, I mean, Benicio del Toro, I completely agree. He is menacing. He's a disgusting character, but intentionally so. He's a brilliant performance from him. I think that it is perhaps more mainstream than a typical Oliver Stone movie. Yeah. And the one thing that I will say I absolutely hate about it is the cop-out ending, which I will say without that's not spoiling. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil anything. But the ending is just god awful, and also the ending could have been changed to make the film 15-20 minutes shorter easily. Definitely. And it would have made a vast improvement to the film. I'm not saying that it's a brilliant film. I don't think it's a bad film either. It's subpar Oliver Stone. And I think as well, like I said, it's too mainstream for him. It doesn't have any of his quirkiness to it.
Yeah, and one other quick thing, I think Demir Bershir is a bit underused in the film as well. I think he was not as good. He's a really good actor, but he's really underused.
I will say this surprising as well. I was surprised at Emil Hirsch in it, because I thought he was, again, on par with... The only other film I saw him in that I thought he was good was Killer Joe. Killer Joe, yeah. Yeah. And I thought he was really good in that, and he's decent. He's not in this as a main part. He's only in it for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes in total for the whole film. But I thought he was perfectly fine in this. So he's another one who's actually coming into his own.
Right, next film.
Yeah, Killing Them Softly, which is the film which stars Brad Pitt as a hitman brought in to basically take out a couple of men who, at the start of the film, go in and sort of steal all the money from this illegal card game that's going on in town. The whole film is set around the time of the bankruptcy in America and the whole thing of the recession kicking off and all that time of the problem when that was all happening before Obama became president. And so everyone's in this sort of downturn, no one's got any money, everyone's having problems with things. And the whole thing is then kicked off that the man who's running the card game, played by Ray Liotta, who previously has admitted that he actually arranged a previous card game to be robbed so he could take the money and got a pass because of the fact he admitted it later, is then people are sent after him, querying him to say, has he done the same thing? At the same time, Brad Pitt's character is brought in to speak to one of the higher up managers who's of sort of all the mob, and it's sort of it's never explained who he works for, but it's like it's kind of like the lower levels of the mob, and he speaks to this manager about organising a hit. Here's a clip.
You ever killed anyone? No. You can get touchy-feely.
Touchy-feely?
Emotional, not fun. A lot of fuss. They cry, they plead, they beg, call for their mothers. It gets embarrassing. I like to kill them softly. From a distance. Not close enough for feelings. Don't like feelings. Don't want to think about them. We need Mickey. What's the problem?
Mickey's expensive.
Not at the moment.
You get him for 10?
15.
You do it for 15?
15. I think in this economy, a quick 15 for 2 days' work would sound pretty good to Mickey. We'll sell him a party. Fly in, whack a guy, fly out. Quick 15.
Fly coach.
So the whole thing is written and directed by Andrew Dominic. It's based on a book by George Higgins. The whole thing of it is there's a really weird dynamic going on in the film where you have the two guys who rob the card game, Frankie and Russell, played by Scoot McNairy and Ben Mendelsohn. Now, the weird thing is it starts off with them kind of like the main characters, but then shifts gear later on and changes to Brad Pitt's character as the main character. It's a really weird dynamic going on there with that. But the whole thing is more or less really oddly about the whole thing of men and their feelings. You have this really strange thing of the character there that they were talking about bringing in another man as a hitman, because the reason he needs to be brought in is because one of the two men that Brad Pitt's been asked to go and actually kill, he knows, and so he doesn't want to do it on that basis that the guy will see him, know that he's coming to kill him, and then things will get complicated. So they bring in this other character that's played by James Gandolfini from I forgot the name of the show. What was he? Sopranos.
Yep.
And the thing is that his character is essentially he's a drunk who is just he comes into town, goes in his hotel, gets really drunk, hires loads of hookers, and doesn't essentially do the job because of the fact that he is a drunk and really can't do it anymore, and he has these problems. And he tries talking with Brad Pitt's character at the same time, who then is like, no, don't want to know, don't want to hear it. And there's this really weird thing going on there. It's not as funny as I was hoping it to be because of the fact that the trailer is one of these trailers that shows a lot of sort of funny bits quickly put together. So it's disappointing on that fact, but overall it's rated 18 because it's quite violent and the language in it is extremely harsh at certain points. And there are these little bits that you will laugh at it, but it's not a comedy. It is a violent drama. And Brad Pitt gives a really good performance in it. You have James Gandolfini's fine in his as well. Ray Liotta in the film. But you've also got in there Richard Jenkins, who's a great actor, and he's brilliant. You heard him in that clip there with Brad Pitt. He makes a couple of appearances, and every time he's on there, he's a joy too. So it's a really well-acted drama. Has a couple of twists and turns that I didn't see coming. But unfortunately, it does try your patience, even though it's not a long film. It's 97 minutes long, and it feels like it's longer in a bad way. So it really needed a bit more livening up. But in a similar way to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy was all about men and their feelings and men and sort of together and all, this is similar in that way, just about hitmen instead of spies.
Do you think Ray Liotta from now on in every film that he's in should be Ray Liotta as himself instead of as a character name?
I think Ray Liotta should be a character. Well, and I'll say this actually. There's a scene where, and it's not really spoiling anything, there's a scene where he gets the beaten out of him. And he is really, it's like he's really severely beaten and blood everywhere and things, and he's like on the floor sobbing. I'll say this: he gives a great performance in that respect of that he's like he has a pathetic character, and it's a thing of that it really does work in it. So I would say that. But anything else nowadays that Ray Liotta's in, I mean, I think if they put him in as a character who's in a coma, he'd have a better performance.
Right, quickly get on to the next film because we only have about 9.5 minutes left. So, Hysteria. Now, this is the film that I'm going to probably struggle at trying to describe without stepping a boundary or two. It's directed by Tanya Wexler. Now, it's set in Victoria, London, and it centres around a doctor, Dr. Granville, played by Hugh Dancy. Now, Dr. Granville, he works in a hospital where he's not respected at all. Everything he does seems to just be thrown out by the person who's in charge of the hospital. He's more caring about cleaning germs and things like that. So he ends up losing his job, and he gets a job working with Dr. Robert Dalrymple, played by Jonathan Pryce. Now, Dr. Robert Dalrymple specialises in hysteria. Now, hysteria in Victorian times was when women came to doctors needing special treatment for something that would alleviate their problems in a way that centres around an area of the women's body.
Tension.
This is just hell for me, this. Dr. Granville, he joins up with him as a partner in a way. I have a quick clip to just... It gives you an indication of what the film is like.
Pardon me.
That's quite all right, handsome.
Molly, is it?
That's right, sir. But my friends call me Molly the Lolly. And I do hope we can be friends.
Molly the Lolly. It's an unusual nickname.
Fancy a lick?
No. Thank you.
Only $6 bob for a gentleman like yourself. It won't take me a minute.
Well, that's a generous offer, I'm sure, but I have a very busy day ahead of me, so perhaps another time, eh? No. What I mean to say is, well, if you'll excuse me.
Suit yourself.
So things seem to go really well for Dr. Granville. However, he starts to get real bad tension in his hand because he has to perform something for the women to alleviate their tension. And so he decides to come up with an item, which is by the help of Rupert Everett's character, that will work on women much better. While this is happening, he's sort of like, he's attracted by Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, who plays Charlotte Dalrymple, the daughter of Jonathan Pryce's Dr. Dalrymple, and the other daughter. And let's just say things go on from there, where they create the thing that women use now in a more sleeker fashion, it's the highest selling woman's device that helps them alleviate tension.
Are we talking like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Mr. Pointy here?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, definitely. Now, this film itself, it surprised me because it is actually a pretty good film. It is a drama / comedy, because there is comedy elements, and you heard it there in the clip of the kind of comedy that's in the film itself. Honestly, it did really surprise me how much I enjoyed this film. There is specifically one scene involving an opera singer who's from France, who needs the tension to alleviate so she can get her voice back. And when they use this machine on her for the first time, she just bursts out into opera the more this machine's helping her. And I was in fits of agony of laughter when this scene was happening. There is some proper drama elements to this movie as well, considering that Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, she's more wanting to look after the children, and the fact she wants them to have a cleaner environment, and the women who was around that, because obviously it's in times where women didn't even have the right to vote. So the film itself, honestly, it really did surprise me, and if you can find it in a cinema that's close to you, I highly recommend it, but be careful with the movie, especially if you're there with your partner, because some of it stuff might make you cringe just a little bit. Right, last review.
Quickly go over Tower Block then, which is a British thriller directed by James Nunn and Ronnie Thompson. It stars Sheridan Smith of
which, by the way, is in Hysteria, who's referred to as Molly the Lolly. I just thought I would throw that in.
Okay. She stars as Becky in this, and she lives in a tower block which has over time been cleared out of tenants because of the fact it's due to be knocked down. The whole of the tenants in the top floor, the only ones that remain, her and several others. And the movie starts with her actually trying to intervene as a boy is running in there, being chased by a couple of boys, and is beaten up. She tries to intervene and gets beaten up herself. But it turns out that the boy who's been beaten up actually dies as a result of his injuries. And the police are there trying to convince everyone to step up and say something to them as witnesses, but nobody will, even her, who visibly has been beaten up. She's got bruises and all on her face, so the police know she's involved, but she still doesn't want to stand up because she's too afraid. The whole thing then sort of seems to go away. A few months later, everything seems to be going as normal. The people are still living in the flats. They haven't heard anything from the council about being moved yet. When all of a sudden things start really kicking off when a sniper starts picking off people in the flats one by one. And the group then all end up out in the hallways where the sniper can't see them, but they find that there are certain places through the tower block as they try and escape that he wouldn't be able to see them that have been booby-trapped. Now, there's not really much more of a story to go into there. It's just one of these ones where people are placed in a situation and they're stuck and they have to try and get out of it. It has a decent setup, and in that respect, with the whole thing. And when the sniper starts firing, there are a couple of really gruesome bits that. One of them, I will admit, made me jump because I just wasn't expecting it. I was really surprised on that front. But the acting in it is quite, at times, really awful. Sheridan Smith is normal kind of performance. You've seen her in most of the comedy she's been in. I've never seen her in anything that's not a comedy before. But she's all right in this, but it's just her really doing more of the same sort of thing. There's other characters in there. You've got like a mother and son. I can't think of it as the name, but it's a Scottish actress that plays the mother. So there's sort of a few recognisable faces on there. But overall, the problem is that once you get to that point in the film where the sniper is there, which is sort of I think it's about the first sort of half hour, then it doesn't keep the tension, and it just goes on, and you wish it would hurry up and get to it. And it's only 90 minutes long. It tries to stretch out what it has too much, too thinly. There's not enough material there to make it stretch. And when it comes to the end and you find out who it is, unfortunately, I predicted who it was about 10 minutes in. I knew that person was going to be the person that did it. So it's one of those things. It's too predictable. There's bits in it where they're trying to be serious, and it's almost like you want to laugh. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's just average, subpar, really.
Right, that's it for this part of the show. If you're listening to us on Spreak, I completely forgot what I was going to say there. I'll start again, shall I? Right, that's it for the cinema part of the show. We'll be back in a moment with the Blu-ray and DVD part of the show. If you're listening to us live on Spreaker, remember to refresh Spreaker once the information has gone up on Twitter. So join us back for that. If you listen to us on other places like iTunes, YouTube, etc., please leave us a rating. Specifically on YouTube, we want comments and we want 5-star rating on YouTube, on iTunes. Remember, things have now changed on iTunes. You need to download the podcast app to download podcasts from now on. You can't download them from the iTunes store. It'll directly take you to there and subscribe to us via that way. And like I said, we'll be back in a moment with the Blu-ray and the DVD part of the show.